The Chinese character for the number 10 is shi. It is composed of two intersecting lines, a vertical stroke cutting through a horizontal one. While this symbol is foundational to Eastern linguistics, its geometry is an exact match for the Western cross. This visual overlap points to a shared concept in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Each of these traditions describes God as spirit, a presence that is both holy and invisible. To communicate a message across millennia without it being distorted or dismissed, such a presence would require a medium that does not rely on shifting human definitions. The source text, The Mathematics of Redemption, argues that God utilized three specific sephirim, or layers of expression. First, the numerical; second, the alphabetic; and third, the word. In this framework, the Chinese numeral shi is more than a linguistic tool. It is a structural component of a system linking ancient scripts to the concept of human redemption. We can see this system at work by analyzing the components of the number 10 as they appear in the Western tradition. Here, 1 represents the singularity of God, and 0 the cycle of eternity. Expressed geometrically, the vertical 1 and encompassing 0 intersect, forming a cross. This intersection defines the Hebrew Aleph Tav, symbols bookending the alphabet used to write the Bible. By embedding this symbol in the alphabets of two vastly different cultures, the message of redemption remains consistent regardless of the language spoken. This pattern is not limited to human writing. Its proponents argue that the geometry predates the development of language itself. The first verse of Genesis contains a series of numerical values that, when mapped, reveal a specific geometric structure. This verse is built upon a triangular foundation that subdivides into a pattern of hexagrams and hexagons. The total value of the verse is 2,701, the product of 37 multiplied by 73. Because these mathematical properties are inherent to the text, the pattern of redemption is presented as a fact of reality that existed before humanity began recording history. The final sephirim moves from abstract numbers to the timeline of human events, specifically the prophecy that the Word would manifest physically as a man. This sequence reaches its conclusion on the date 11433 AD, the historical marker associated with the Crucifixion. The digits 1 and 14 form the number 114, which in the Hebrew tradition is the numerical value for the word gracious. In this view, the calendar date and the Hebrew language are synchronized to confirm the nature of the event. The geometry of Genesis, the intersection of ancient alphabets, and the 11433 timestamp are presented as a singular, intentional signature. What is the purpose of establishing such a complex proof across mathematics, history, and language? The source text suggests this manifestation was a sign of love, a necessary act to provide a path for redemption. This brings us back to the simple strokes of the character shi. To write the number 10 in Chinese is to trace the geometry that this tradition claims is the foundation of human salvation.
So where does this search for a pattern even begin? You might think it would be a historical event, but no. Surprisingly, it starts with the building blocks of language itself, the ancient Hebrew alphabet. We're zeroing in on this one letter, Tav. Now, according to this interpretation, Tav wasn't just the final letter. Its most ancient form was actually a pictograph, a little drawing. And what did it mean? A mark? Or a cross? The implication here is pretty clear. The symbol was embedded right there in the language, long before the crucifixion ever happened.
All right. So from the alphabet, the argument jumps over to one of the oldest stories we have, right out of the book of Genesis. The next piece of this supposed pattern is found in the garden with Adam and Eve.
The source highlights a very specific sequence of events here. First, there's a sin. Then, a sacrifice. An animal's life is taken. And then, a covering is provided. After Adam and Eve's mistake, they're given clothes made from animal skins. And the crucial point in this view is that for that covering to even exist, a life had to be taken. This is presented as the very first sacrifice, a kind of foundational pattern of a life being given to cover a wrong.
Okay, so from the garden, the source material takes a huge leap forward in time. We're talking more than 1,000 years. We land at another pivotal moment, the very first Passover in Egypt. And this is where you really start to see the sheer scope of the argument being made. It's connecting an event from creation, a historical ritual in 1312 BC, and then the crucifixion around 33 AD. The claim is that these aren't just three disconnected moments. No, they're part of a deliberate, repeating pattern that stretches across millennia. The key detail here is that specific instruction given during the Passover. You have to mark your doorposts with the blood of a lamb. That act, that mark of blood, was literally a sign of protection. The source draws a direct line from this event, using blood as a saving mark, to its whole overarching theme of sacrifice and salvation. So, what about the final connection? The source argues that this ancient pattern didn't just vanish into history. It claims we can actually still see echoes of it in cultural traditions that are alive and well today. Now, this is where a pretty interesting parallel's drawn. You've got the ancient Passover ritual on one hand, marking the door with blood for protection, and then you have some modern customs, like placing red items, say a cloth, on doorposts for a blessing during weddings or Chinese New Year. The argument here is that this is a kind of enduring cultural memory, a continuation of that ancient theme, marking a doorway with the color red for blessing and protection. So let's just recap the argument that our source material puts together. It's weaving together four very distinct points, isn't it? A symbol from an ancient alphabet, a theological take on the first sacrifice, a key historical ritual from the Passover, and a connection to modern cultural traditions. All of this is laid out as evidence of a single continuous grand design that's centered on the cross. So, whether you fully accept this premise of a grand design or not, this way of thinking brings up some really fascinating questions. It makes you look at the symbols all around us and just wonder, where do they really come from? How do they travel through history? And how do ancient marks manage to find new, powerful meaning across completely different cultures and times?